Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Going to spend some time with my friend Tony Powers, and host of Powers to the People over at italkus.com, and heard on broadcasts out there in both Georgia and in, is it South Carolina? South Carolina, right?
That's right, Georgia and South Carolina.
Oh, good. And love what you do. Love having you on the program, and grateful always to chat. So tell us a little bit about iTalk US before we get into my topic, which I think will be the election results. There's a lot to talk about there. Tell me about that.
Well, I encourage everybody to tune us in at italkus.com. You can listen all over the world, and of course we have apps for all your mobile devices. Just go to your smartphone and type in iTalk US, and you can get the network and all of our programming, and especially mine in the afternoon, 3 to 6, Monday through Friday, Eastern Time. I encourage you to listen in.
Very good. I thought we would talk a little bit about the election returns. You know, I wrote a column over there at HuffingtonPost.com. All you have to do is go to Huffington Post, put in Kevin Price, and you'll see my most recent articles. I think this article is a couple of weeks old. It can't be more than a couple of weeks old. But it was my assessment. It was called The Year of the Schizophrenic Voter. As voters voted red for candidates, they voted a lot of blue for policy. And we began to see a lot of this even back in 2008. You'll recall in California, 70% of black males voted for Barack Obama while voting against same-sex marriage. And ironically, the man they voted for ended up being same-sex marriage's greatest champion, if you would. And so what do you think about this? I'm sure you noticed the same thing, schizophrenic voting.
Yeah, it's funny how people vote against their own interest, and especially the minority communities, they continue to vote against their own interest, although I was encouraged by what we saw down in Texas with the Hispanic vote down there. But I think we're beginning to see people wake up a little bit, and hopefully the Republicans will do things when they take power in January, and they'll reach out to the minority communities with, I don't know, let's talk education. You know, the Democrats have been continually fighting the idea of allowing the money to follow the child, so you could reach out to the black community that way and pass some real immigration reform and override what the president is going to do to us this evening.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you were a little glad. You were glad to see how things went as far as Latino voters here in our elections here in Texas. Elaborate a little on that.
Well, I think about 44% there went for your lieutenant governor, so that's pretty good. If you've got 44% of the Hispanic vote going with the Republican Party in Texas, where they're right on the front line of this immigration problem, it would seem to me that the Hispanic community is a little smarter than the president and the Democrats give them credit for.
Yeah, there might be some truth about that. And, absolutely, because the reality is that the people who are going to be hurt most by this amnesty program are the Hispanics that are already here.
Oh, absolutely.
That are here illegally.
Yeah, we've looked at, and if you look back, and this is the price of business, and I know you've seen this trend over the past 10 years, we've seen incomes and household incomes just declining. It didn't start with Obama, but it certainly got a lot worse under Obama. And during these past 10 years, we've seen just a flood of illegal immigration across our border in the Bush years, and then on steroids under Obama. And so that depresses wages when you have more people willing to come into the country and work for cheaper wages than in the housing industry, the construction industry, of course, in the agricultural industry. And you name it, these folks are taking those unskilled jobs that are hurting people who are already here working for those jobs here legally. And, of course, the black community is being decimated by it.
Yeah, no question about it. It hurts the blacks the most. You know, it's interesting that the ethnic groups that are most loyal to the Democrats are the most abused. I think of the Jewish community, and I think of blacks, and I think of Hispanics. They literally, it's like a sick codependent relationship. The Democrats continue to abuse them, and they continue to support them in abusing them.
I know it just blows my mind. Again, it's people voting against their own self-interest. But, and I think that Jonathan Gruber may be right. Maybe the American voters are stupid. And the thing is that maybe the Democrat American voters are the most stupid because they're the ones that Jonathan Gruber was really talking about. They can talk over their heads. They can talk down to them. And they know that they don't really get it. They just vote like a monolith, and they always just hit that D and go with the D because that's what they're being told in their churches. That's what they're being told by their civic leaders that, we've got to vote Democrat.
Yeah.
And somehow 85, 90, 95% vote that way. And it's, again, against their own best interest because you've got some folks in Washington, D.C., especially in that Congressional Black Caucus, who they're getting greased. They're doing fine.
Yeah.
But their constituents aren't.
Yeah, it's like a fiefdom, actually. It's like a fiefdom. Talking to Tony Powers, italkus.com. By the way, I'm looking at the numbers, and these are shocking. There was a time not too long ago getting 40% of the vote by Republicans getting 40% of the Latino vote was a dream. It was literally a pipe dream. Among all Latino voters, Patrick got 46%. Abbott got 44%. Listen to this. Latino men voted 53%. For Dan Patrick. He got the majority of Latino men. Man, I don't know about you, but that's just shocking in a very good way.
Oh, it is. But again, I think people are beginning to wake up. And now the president, I think what he's doing tonight is he saw those numbers, and I think that scared the Democrats, because remember just a year ago when we had the big government shutdown, 17% of the government was shut down, and the president was closing war memorials and trying to make it as painful as possible for the people. And the mainstream media were, the Republicans shut the government down, and they're going to get all the blame, and boy, is this going to hurt them. Well, 1 year later, look what happened. It was a tsunami. It wasn't a wave. That was a tsunami that occurred back on November 4th, just a few weeks ago. And I think the president is afraid that Republicans are going to actually do something when the new Congress comes to Washington on, I believe it's January the 6th next year. And when they do, I think he's afraid that they're going to pass real immigration reform that makes sense. And so he's trying to get a jump on them, and he's going to do something unconstitutional tonight. And I'm kind of proud of the networks for not carrying it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I encourage people. I think it's not stupid as much as ignorant. I think that what we're seeing in the voting booths is a lot of complacency. People way more informed on reality TV show contestants than they are candidates for office. It's bizarre to me to see people vote for in Colorado pro-life candidates for U.S. Senate and then vote against a pro-life initiative and referendum. It's bizarre what I'm seeing around the country. And even in like a place like Texas, where even north of Houston, Dan Patrick and Greg Abbott did extremely well, but in Denton they voted against fracking, in the city of Denton area. And so it's very bizarre. I attribute it to ignorance, and I attribute it to multi-generational apathy and ignorance. I'm glad that we had a bunch of red for elected offices, but that incongruency is a big red flag between the way they voted for office and the way they voted for policy. My good friend, Tony Powers, awesome, great, always glad to have you on the program, and thanks for your insight. italkus.com. Final thoughts before I let you go?
Let's just see what the president does tonight. I think it's going to be unconstitutional. Let's hope the Republicans grow a spine and they stand up and just say no to this and use the power of the purse to stop it.
Thanks so much. When we come back, much more for you right here on The Price of Business.